This is Joseph here at LifeSource. I want to talk to you a bit about this being Black History Month, and one of the items that I want to make sure that we cover and that we share and discuss is what we call the Black National Anthem, the Negro National Anthem, the Colored National Anthem, what is really named Lift Every Voice and Sing, written by a composer, a writer by the name of James Weldon Johnson. So it was written right about 1900 by James Weldon Johnson and his brother John Johnson, who was actually a great musician. Who composed the music, and so James Weldon Johnson was the principal of a school in Florida, a segregated school, primarily with hundreds of students, largely black. And it was basically a school where, like in so many places in the South and even across the rest of America, where black people were segregated from white people, not just black people, but Native Americans and people of diverse, you might say, diverse ethnicity. And that's why they were called coloreds, not necessarily because they were all black, but because they weren't white. And I'm saying this, and I hope that no one gets too many bad feelings about this, because all we're doing is simply recovering history in that regard. But the whole point is that he'd written this song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and by the time that I heard it as a child, it was actually very common. We hadn't yet settled on it being called the Negro or the Black National Anthem. It was called Lift Every Voice and Sing, and in churches across the South where I was growing up, where I was born in Mississippi, brothers and sisters born in Georgia and Louisiana and places like that, into Oklahoma, it was a song sung reverentially. So when, for example, wherever we went to church, in fact, every community we were in, whether you were black or Latino or Mexican, whether you were Native American, in fact, if you were Irish or Jewish, wherever the Lift Every Voice and Sing was sung in a service or a meeting, everyone immediately stood up in reverence. Everyone, regardless of color or culture or race, everyone simply honored it because of the words and the ideas behind it. And the ideas, as one person said, they were, James Weldon Johnson invoked God. He and his brother, in the writing of the song, they invoked God's presence, God's power, God's authority, God's justice in the pursuit of equality and harmony. And that, in fact, it is a song that talks about people's pain and suffering in subjugation, in enslavement, in abuse, in being treated as subhumans. And so if you know the experience of that, for whatever reason, whatever background you come from, you understand what you understand the feelings and emotions evoked by this song. I'm putting up the words on the screen so that everyone can see them, but I do remember that even Native Americans in their native dress, would stand when this song would be sung, when this song would be celebrated, when the Irish in their formal English dress would stand, and those who didn't have formal dress, coming out of factories and things like that. Yes, out of factories and out of farming territories. Native Americans and Mexican farm workers, they would all stand in reverence to this song because of what it meant to us all, and because of what it meant to everyone. Today, however, we now call it the Black National Anthem. And that's okay too. We just need to remember the facts of where it comes from. It wasn't the Black National Anthem when James Weldon Johnson and his brother delivered it. It was an anthem dedicated to God, His authority, His presence, His power, and His grace over a struggling people, a struggling nation, seeking justice and seeking equality. So wherever you're from, if that song was written with you in mind, with the hopes of your family, your future, honoring God. Just a little bit more about that, and that James Weldon Johnson didn't found the NAACP for that song. The NAACP found James Weldon Johnson and the song. In that sense, he was not an original or a founding member. In fact, the NAACP was a socialist Marxist organization founded roughly in 1909. It actually really only had one active non-white member. And over the years, they recruited more black people in their drive, just so we're clear, in their drive to promote socialism. They were not actually trying to promote civil rights. They were trying to promote Marxist socialism, and that was their goal. And suddenly one day you wake up, and yes, the NAACP is a black organization. It didn't even have a black president till 1950. And in fact, it didn't even have a black leadership structure until the 1930s. So that you know the real truth behind the founding of the NAACP. It wasn't founded over civil rights. It was founded over the drive to Marxist socialism. And that is, as we call them in America, they were progressives. That was the American word for Marxist socialism that was held by so many, and a term that was so popular. Oddly enough, one of those great progressives was Woodrow Wilson. In fact, the great progressives were actually very pro-slavery, very anti-black, and actually to a large degree racist. But they found that with the loss of the Civil War and the loss of their positions of authority, well, they decided to look around for a new opportunity to drive socialism in America toward the end of the 19th century. And they found that opportunity with the bad experiences that black people were having as a result of lynchings and abuse and discrimination and racism, certainly. But they found a possibility in dealing with with black Americans and the results of slavery. So anyway, it's just so we're all clear on how we got what we now call the Black National Anthem. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I dare say the most important thing that Christians want to remember is that when James Weldon Johnson and his brother developed this song there in 1900 with the school that he was principal of, and the 500 students who were there at the school, they were looking for a word to be said from the Lord. They were looking for a word to be said from God about the future, about their hopes, their dreams, their passions, and the very many lands that they came from. Not just Africa, but wherever they came from, wherever you're from, this song is for you. To say to you, there is an opportunity for you and your family and your people and your culture to see a day of freedom, of equality, of success, of greatness. Yes, even in America. That's the opportunity that we want to talk through and that we want to drive, is that God is the God of everyone, everywhere. And we ought to look forward to celebrating the God who made everything, who loves everyone, and wants everyone to be part of that great getting up morning, as we say in black churches. Well, I should say great getting up morning, as we say in black churches. And so when we sing, we shall overcome, that's not necessarily just our thing, but that's everyone's thing who seeks freedom, everyone's thing who seeks equality, everyone's thing who seeks a day of unity, of restoration, and a drive to being special, to achievement, not just of small things, but of great things, and sometimes starting with little things. So I just want to share that with all of you in that sense. I remember sitting in church meetings and community meetings as a little kid. Martin Luther King was just probably a few weeks and maybe a few months from himself being shot, being assassinated in those days back in April of 1968. I'm saying to you that when we sang those words, lift every voice and sing, everyone stood, everyone understood, at least in those communities. Everyone understood. In these multi-ethnic churches and community centers, That was the life we drove. That was the life we promoted. And that was the dream we celebrated. Thank you all for listening to this, because I want to make sure that we are all on the same page as in representing and sharing and promoting the gospel, which, by the way, James Weldon Johnson, his brother John Johnson, and even getting to the day of Martin Luther King, the goal wasn't about being black and understanding it and pursuing the history of it all. Not the history, but the future of it all. Read the song. The song talks about the future. And I hope that all of you, in rereading it and singing it, you have the same view. What is it that we are seeking to achieve? And how is it we are seeking to achieve it? And who is the author and finisher of that achievement? The Lord. Enjoy sharing with friends and neighbors and forwarding this if you can. And by the way, if you can support LifeSource, that would be a great thing. Share with us too. Thanks for listening. Peace. I'm out.